The work of the Zero Project and the work that Gallaudet is doing on a daily basis strives to do one single thing, and that is to bring equity as well as opportunities to people in the disability community, always with the goal being of eliminating unemployment for all people with disabilities. Mr. Essel and his team have known for a number of people that the goal is to look to the ideas that can be created that actually work. So I'm here with you today as part of the broader events that will be taking place around inclusive education. And I am particular in looking at the role of education in advancing people with disabilities' lives. President Abraham Lincoln once said that education is the key to winning the race of life. And at that time, President Lincoln and our American counterpart to the Parliament here, Congress, had signed the first ever charter in the world. That charter was the one that founded a national college serving deaf individuals in the United States, now known as Gallaudet University. That charter was signed in 1864, 160 years ago. In fact, April 8th, we'll be celebrating that anniversary. When Mr. Essel came to Gallaudet before the pandemic, and you know we always describe life as before or after the pandemic, that milestone is the one we mark our lives in, and I believe Mr. Essel came to Gallaudet prior to the pandemic. It was clear that he saw something at Gallaudet that works. So why is it that Gallaudet works? I say that because Gallaudet is a place where everyone communicates in sign language, from the members of our board of trustees to the president to the executive team running the university, including our faculty, staff, and students. Everyone at Gallaudet communicates using sign language. And if you're learning to sign, you have a place as well, and if you're not able to sign, then we have interpreters to provide support to communication. This is a wonderful example of inclusive education that actually works at Gallaudet University. We at Gallaudet have produced over 15,000 living alumni who live all over the world. Many of them leave the university, some stay in the United States and become innovators, leaders, and change makers. Speaking more specifically here in your parliament, you have the first ever deaf individual who is here, Helena Jarmer. And I believe she's somewhere here in the audience. I do see her now. She is the first, oh yes, let's acknowledge her and her work. She is the first culturally deaf woman here in Austria to become a member of parliament. Quite an honor. The first deaf woman in the world to become a member of parliament actually was in South Africa. And that happened to be an alumna of Gallaudet, Wilma Nieuwhout-Druchen. She also serves on the Gallaudet Board of Trustees presently, so you might say she's my boss. She received her bachelor's, master's, and honorary doctorate from Gallaudet University. From a human rights and language minority rights perspective, something that this country, Austria, understands very well, there are three key things that are essential for each person to be able to acquire and become fluent in a language. And that draws from three fundamental elements. First is access to sign language. Access is what's key here. Secondly, you must have a rich language environment. And thirdly, that's essential, is you must have the experience of being able to interact with individuals using that language. The campus that we have at Gallaudet University has a birth to 21-year-old educational program, a university component to our program offering bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs, as well as special training programs for individuals after college. At Gallaudet, we teach primarily using American Sign Language. English as a spoken language is taught primarily in its printed form. Our daily experiment is proof that access to a rich language environment and opportunities to interact on a daily basis for everyone results in success. We have become global leaders. We've been able to demonstrate how people can live bilingually using American Sign Language and English. And that evidence is irrefutable. Deaf people are able to do anything with sign language. That is clearly evident. I'd like to share with you today an example. If you're looking for an example as to how a deaf person or a person with disability is able to thrive, lead, and produce revenue, just look to Gallaudet as that example. We have a board of trustees that's made up of 51% of the individuals deaf as a result of a protest that took place in 1988 led by our students. We now have the 4th deaf president. I'm the first deaf female president of Gallaudet University. We have an executive team, all whom report to me. When I arrived in 2016, they were all hearing. All of them were men except for one female. Now, fast forward to today. In fact, in 2019, we became a majority deaf-led institution, and in 2022, the very first time in our 158-year history that we didn't need to have an interpreter to conduct our executive team meetings. And we are the only place in the world that is run by people with disabilities, by deaf people who use sign language, managing a budget of over $200 million. We just went through our accreditation process. They called us the unicorn in higher education in America because we had no recommended actions, corrective actions, or needs for improvement based on our accrediting agency, and again, run by individuals who are deaf and signing. So if you're looking for evidence as to what can happen, we're not that far away, so please do come and visit. Come and visit and experience us for yourselves. I've spent quite some time here thinking about what we call the secret sauce that makes Gallaudet possible. What's led to our success? And I have 3 thoughts that I'd like to share with you. One, I'll focus on primarily in my remarks today. First is the importance of public investment in people with disabilities. In particular here, I'm speaking to individuals who are deaf and use sign language. Second thing that's essential is creating and cultivating a sense of belonging around everything that we do. And finally, advocating and fighting for equity. Again, equity in everything that we do, including language equity. So I've only been given 10 minutes today. I know I could take an entire hour with you. I will not. However, I did want to focus on the most essential thing, given that I'm here before the Austrian Parliament. Today, I want to focus on the importance of public support, which is essential for language equality in order for a language to thrive. Austria is an amazing country with a rich, diverse history around people and languages. In fact, you are leaders in adopting the civil rights, human rights. Years ago, in fact, you are also one Austrian Sign Language was recognized, OGS, as an official sign language, an independent language within your constitution in 2005. And with that, you signed the UN CRPD in 2007. Your leadership has been nothing short of remarkable in this area, in this part of the world. And what's fascinating, given your history, you are also one of the early adopters of sign language-based education. Right here, starting in 1779. When the Emperor Joseph II went to Paris, he went to see the National Institute for Deaf Children there and brought back with him sign language education here to Austria in 1779. I don't know if you realize that Thomas Gallaudet, the father of the founder of Gallaudet University, also went to Paris 100 years later. Well, it was more like 40 years later. And here in Austria, You were the ones to found the third publicly supported or funded bilingual education environment for deaf children. You followed by a school that was founded in Paris and in Germany, than the one here. And daughter institutions of Viennese Institute, which is founded all over Austro-Hungarian, including schools in Milan. So it was in 1815 that Thomas Gallaudet came to Paris to do the exact same thing that happened here. He brought sign language to the United States after that visit. The first school for the deaf was founded in 1817 in America, and over the next 100 years we founded 35 schools for the deaf. And by 1864, Thomas Gallaudet's son, Edward Minor Gallaudet, went on to found Gallaudet University. I share this history to better understand what happened here in Austria. We look to bilingual education efforts and the diminishing recognition of sign language as a pathway for learning, as a language deserving of equity to spoken language in this country and other countries in the world. So what happened here in Austria has happened elsewhere in the world. There was a famous congress that took place in 1880, the Bildung Congress, a gathering of educators of the deaf. And in 1880, they made a declaration banning the use of sign language in the classroom for deaf children. That declaration began to take over the educational philosophies in the world. And then in Austria, you were as well impacted by eugenics and World War II. These movements led to the diminishment and the recognition of sign language rights for deaf people. What I'm so pleased to see now is that Austria did not give up. I'm here to ask that you stand again and move forward even more than you have in the last 2 years. You have begun to do work with the passing of laws that encourage the establishment of sign language-based learning and education in the early years of a deaf child's life. I encourage you to further invest even more aggressively in the years to come, because this is the right move to make. We at Gallaudet University and others here stand by to support you and your growth, your regrowth, and reinstituting sign language-based learning and education here in Austria. Secondly, one of the things that's so important, as you've already begun here, I encourage you to continue, is the use of sign language, not just being limited to deaf children, but to being made available to all children. Because we know neurological growth happens when you're exposed to sign language. The human brain does not privilege in any way sign language or spoken language over the other. Spoken language is not privileged over sign language. It's seen in neurological terms as being equal. So we are here at Gallaudet to support you and your efforts in advancing the rights of deaf people in your country, to get their advanced degrees at Gallaudet University, and to improve upon your workforce here in Austria. And finally, I want to encourage you as members of Parliament to look to your policies, to see where you can develop more academic areas within universities, focusing on 2 primary things: deaf studies and Austrian Sign Language. What you haven't done yet is to establish a study of Austrian Sign Language and the corpus of Austrian Sign Language, to build a language documentation system that would then further advance bilingual education here in Austria. I know I'm out of time, and I've taken longer than I should have, but I want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I encourage you to continue the work you're doing to advance the rights of sign language, users of sign language here in Austrians' life, and also particular in the area of education. We in America are here to support you and your people with disabilities, individuals who are deaf, to win the race of life. And if there's anything that we can do to support that, do let us know.